Devout traveller, if you read this, know that the dangers to pilgrims are manifold, and there is little control of the route between the port of Jaffa and Jerusalem, a 2-day journey along a perilous mountain road through fierce desert heat and arid terrain, surrounded by scum that crawled straight from the devil's cauldron. Should you somehow survive the wild animals, such as lions, and even manage to escape the Muslim armies, be sure that sooner or later you'll encounter the slavers, cutthroats, and assassins. Good luck. A devout Christian prior to his 3rd pilgrimage. Fellow brothers, hear my plea in this darkest of hours. The Holy Land, at the navel of the earth where our Lord walked through this world, is stricken with grief and despair. A tragedy of unfathomable proportions occurred when the Saracens attacked 700 Christian pilgrims on the eve of Easter 1119, slaughtering most. Our continued survival in the Holy Lands demands a fighting force specifically dedicated to protecting the holy roads and pilgrims. Don't abandon us. Appeal from the Patriarch of Jerusalem to all European kings, to the Pope and the nobility. After my wife's death, I, a noble knight from Champagne, left Europe to seek adventures in the Orient with my brother-in-arms, Godfrey de Saint-Omer. We were so poor back then that we had to share a horse. Having witnessed all the injustices done to pilgrims in the Holy Land, we knew we couldn't stand idle. We gathered 7 friends, battle-hardened veterans, and took a vow to protect pilgrims on the road to Jerusalem. We were stationed at the site of the Temple of Solomon, and since then became known as Templars. Hugh de Payen, founder of the Order of the Temple and first Grand Master. What has become of the holy office of the Pope in the last century? My predecessors were far worse than merely incompetent. They were antichrists, masquerading as popes. These so-called holy men are ready to murder the current pope to assume his position. I can only hope that history will forget that spoiled brat, John the 12th, still a teenager. This modern-day Caligula wasted money, turned the papal palace into a whorehouse, and was killed by a jealous husband when caught in bed with the wife in question. I shall put an end to this travesty, and I know just the right people who will help me achieve it. Pope Gregory VII, 1073. I feel the time is right for Christianity to embrace a revolutionary idea. A new knighthood is here, one which harmonically combines a warrior and a monk in one indivisible whole. Allow me to present to you the Knights Templar. This fierce militia of Christ wages a ceaseless, twofold war against both flesh and blood and the invisible forces of evil. It stands for ideal knighthood and unflawed chivalry. Support them with everything you can so that they can advance their holy mission, fight the good fight, and defeat the forces of darkness. Bernard of Clairvaux, in praise of the new knighthood. In the year of our Lord 1129, we are assembled here at Troyes at the request of our great brother Bernard of Clairvaux. I am pleased to see that all our archbishops, bishops, and abbots came to honor this glorious event. At my behest, and with the approval of the Patriarch of Jerusalem, I hereby bless the existence of the Order of the Knights Templar. They are to receive white robes signifying purity. On them, proudly, a red cross should be affixed to symbolize the sacrifice they are prepared to make. Pope Honorius II, the Council of Troyes, 90 miles southeast of Paris. Noble Templars, you are the harbingers of a new dawn. Divine light shall shine on your path as you reclaim the kingdom of heaven in praise of our Saviour. In order to succeed with this holiest of missions, I bestow every best gift upon you. I appeal to all Christians to help you as best they can. From now on, you may erect your own churches, lay claim to the spoils of battle, collect your own taxes. You shall answer to no one but me. No king or emperor shall have power over you, for you are the soldiers of God. Pope Innocent II, Papal Bull, Every Best Gift. You are not to laugh to excess or indulge in practical jokes or horseplay. You are to remain silent whenever possible, and not raise your voice, except to be heard on the battlefield. You shall not indulge in any displays of anger. You do not gossip about any one or anything. Too much talk is not without sin. Idle talk and wicked bursts of laughter are forbidden. You say 26 paternosters upon rising, and 60 more before eating. In all, the prayer is to be repeated 148 times each day. Drunkenness would not be tolerated. Excerpt from the Latin Rule, the Templars' Code, consisting of nearly 700 rules. You probably thought you'll have a jolly good time here, lots of bloody adventures, eh? No, you're here to suffer, and I'm going to personally make your life hell. Disobey me, you're out. Take a good look at your white habits, you'll wear them at all times, even when sleeping. No decorations are allowed on weapons and armour. I don't want you sissies to look like women. A light is to burn in your dormitories all night, so that shadowy enemies may not lead you to wickedness. If you receive a letter from home, you mummy's boys, it will be read to you with the master's permission. Templar Chapter Master to New Initiates. These are the punishments for breaking the rules of the order. You could be stripped of your rank, loss of habit, if you fight with a fellow brother, injure a fellow Christian in anger, lose or kill a slave or a horse, have sex with a woman, or deface the Templar uniform. You could be expelled from the order, loss of house, for committing the filthy, stinking sin of sodomy, for heresy, treason with the Saracens, cowardice on the battlefield, and for murdering a Christian. Penalties and penances. My husband left me and joined the Templars, where he would fight for the greater good. I was to become a nun. He was never to see me again. His order was open to men only, and upon joining he took a strict vow of celibacy. They told him he could never kiss a woman again, be it me, his mother, or his sister. Kissing is considered unseemly and can rouse dangerous passions. My man was warned even against looking upon women. Jeanne de Vergy, nun at Mont Saint-Michel Monastery. I am not going to lie to you, my dear nephew. If you want to join us, please remember that we are not like the common crusaders you fancy so much. You want to become a knight, but don't forget you'll need to be a monk, too. Be ready to embrace an austere life, one of absolute poverty, chastity, and obedience. You can't have any personal possessions. You'll be expected to give up the pleasures of the flesh, any private life, and do without the comfort of a wife and family. Do you still want to commit yourself to such a life? Letter from Master Armand de Périgord to his nephew. The greatest day finally arrived. I am to become a Templar knight. I fulfill all the prerequisites for membership. I'm of noble birth, a legitimate son, and not married. I'm in good health, not indebted, and not bound to any other order. New initiates are led to a domed chamber of a church resembling the Holy Sepulchre. First, the elder brothers will determine if no one present opposes me as a candidate. Then, they will tell me of the harshness of the Templar life, and if I still want to join, they will proceed to ask me many personal questions. Ultimately, I take the Templar vows. Sir Jeremiah Brock. The Grand Master of the Templars is their all-powerful leader, so powerful that the final paragraph of their rule states that all the specific instructions contained therein are to be followed or not at the discretion of the Master. His term of office is for life, and he's in charge of the Order's worldwide operations. His death is celebrated with great dignity and many prayers. A successor is chosen by an electoral college of 13 members, 8 knights and 4 sergeants representing the 12 apostles, plus a chaplain brother for symbolizing Jesus Christ. Assassin spy reporting on the Grand Master of the Templars. The Templar Order is an extremely intricate and efficient organization. The actual knights are the minority here, with most of the brothers working as servants, blacksmiths, brewers, tanners, engineers, masons, carpenters, and architects. We have associate members who are married and only serve temporarily. Women are allowed in this group too. They serve as nurses. Strange, but even non-Christians, people of mixed races, join the order as sergeants, scribes, and so on. You feel as if part of something great here. Pedro, a Templar stonemason. Dear friend, nowadays it is too dangerous to carry large sums along perilous routes. It is safer to entrust your money to the Knights Templar and their network. They have invented an ingenious system. If you wish to travel on business to the Orient, you go to any Templar house in Europe with your money, and they give you a piece of paper stating the amount of your deposit. This document is encoded so that no thief or pirate can present it as their own. With this receipt on paper, you can safely withdraw money from every Templar stronghold in the world. Letter from Mordecai, Jewish merchant, to his friend Shimon. Due to the special nature of our order and our unmatched diplomatic skills, we are often active as advisors to kings and nobles. Our brethren also act as papal chamberlains and have access to the private chambers of the Pope. Templars preside as judges over major crimes. We've put some of the worst scum behind bars. As inconspicuous monk messengers, we make the perfect spies, and as we're religious men, we are much less likely to be stopped and questioned by the authorities. Gilbert Herral, Grand Master, 1194. Templars can be arrogant and overconfident, but they earned it by always being the first to enter into battle and the last to leave. Much like ferocious lions, they rush in upon their adversaries against incredible odds, then scatter them like sheep. The courage and discipline of the Templars is respected by Muslims and Europeans alike. These extraordinary warriors are never allowed to leave the battlefield, no matter what the odds, and always ready to perish for their faith. Archbishop William of Tyre, chronicler of the Templar Order. The Crusades that shook the whole world started as a holy war. Our goal was to reclaim the city of Jerusalem, which was captured in Anno Domini 638 by Muslim forces, as well as other sites associated with the life of Jesus Christ. The history of our order is tied closely to the Crusades. When we fought in the Holy Land, we invented a word that described all the territories of the Levant. We called it Outremer, a faraway kingdom across the sea. Bertrand de Blanchefort, Templar Grand Master. When we first came to the Holy Land, we weren't prepared for the multitude of races, religions, and customs we encountered there. Our Muslim enemy wasn't unified as we had expected. They were fragmented into factions and engaged in constant power struggles. We conveniently called them Saracens, because the ancient Romans used this term to describe the people who inhabited the deserts near Syria. Their warriors are strong and dedicated. Like us, they were trained to die as martyrs and not fear death. Tancred, a Norman leader of the First Crusade. The battle at the Horns of Hattin brought the Prophet eternal glory and shame upon my worst enemies, the Templars. These holy warriors who led the Christian army underestimated me and ordered their forces to engage me against better judgment. Their arrogance sealed their fate. The Christians were too exhausted from the long march and had barely any food and water left. They fell straight into my trap. I annihilated them. After the battle, I gave orders to cut off every Templar's head. I respect these warriors of Christ, but fear them as well. Saladin, the Battle of Hattin, July the 4th, 1187. My first visit to Outremer was deeply embarrassing, as I saw how my Christian brothers there became orientalized, tainted by the delights of the East. These once simple men now readily embrace the culture of those savages, employing Syrian physicians, cooks, artisans, and servants. They organize lavish banquets with wenches attending, and use professional mourners at funerals. When not on the battlefield, these feigned Saracens are garbed in feminine Eastern dress. Can you imagine? They even eat local fruit and bathe regularly. Arnulf, a Frankish noble, on his visit to Outremer. I was born a slave, brought from a foreign country with no knowledge of my parents. They called me Mamluk. I learned to hate early on as they trained me to become a killing machine. I was chosen to be one of the elite bodyguards of the Sultan of Egypt. He stood in the way of my ambitions. I assassinated him and became Sultan myself. People call Mamluks the Templars of Islam because we are unstoppable. My rule overshadowed even the mighty Saladin. I crushed the Christians, brought the Mongol horde to a halt, and annihilated the assassins. Baybars, Sultan of the Mamluks. I first met the illustrious assassins at their fortress, Alamut. Well trained as devout holy warriors, they are not entirely dissimilar to the Templars. Their charismatic leader is called the Old Man of the Mountain. Some of the young initiates are led to believe in the secret garden of paradise. It's an imaginary heaven made real by the use of drugs. If you carry out an assassination successfully, you gain access to it. Many kings and nobles paid tribute to the old man and cultivate his friendship for fear of being murdered. Marco Polo, on Alamut, 1273. My ancestors came to Outremer bearing the prejudice and misconceptions of typical Europeans. Now, having had 3 generations of Dibelin live in the East, I know that Saracen culture is infinitely more refined than ours. There are so many different faiths here: Zoroastrians, Gnostics, Sufis, and Buddhists. We learned the local language, bargained and conducted business, entered into personal friendships and political alliances, read literature, discoursed on philosophy, and even quietly took lovers. Outremer is truly the kingdom of heaven. Diary of Guy Dibelin. I really hope you have something special for me this time. I'm so sick and tired of selling drops of milk from the Virgin Mary's breast, phials of Christ's blood, Jesus' baby teeth, or that horrid, genuine umbilical cord. You say you're offering me the authentic spear of destiny. You really ought to know that I sold 4 such spears last year. What I need is for you to deliver something sensational to me, like part of the True Cross, the Ark of the Covenant, or even the Holy Grail. We have 20 grails circulating around, and I think the real thing is lost for good. Catalan merchant, discussing a transaction with a renowned relic hunter. I'm one of the last Cathars. Cathar means pure one in Greek. Our belief is that the world is a place of eternal war between the principles of light, spirit, and darkness, the evil material world. The Catholic Church watched as our popularity grew. They declared war on us and launched a crusade. Their zeal at exterminating us reached its apex at the siege of Béziers, when the papal legate was asked by his soldiers how to distinguish between Cathars and Catholics. He simply replied, "Kill them all. God will know his own." Apocryphal history. I was born an aristocrat, but I found my true calling with the Dominican order. Heresy was spreading like a plague, tainting people's hearts. The worst heretics were the Cathars. We tried to reason with them, but Satan's grasp was too strong. They were corrupted beyond redemption. We burned them all, to the last man, woman, and child. The Pope gave us power to root out heretics from now on. We were permitted to use torture to obtain confessions. The Inquisition was born, and I was one of the first to take up the struggle against the devil. Conrad of Marburg, Inquisitor into heretical depravity. Heresy is defined as an opinion or religious belief that is in opposition to orthodox Catholic doctrine. Personally, I call it an error of faith, a sickness of the soul. At trials for heresy, our goal is not to ascertain the truth, but to prove the charges brought by the Church. These men are already guilty when we summon them, never forget that. Torture itself is not punishment. We use it merely to liberate the soul from Satan's grasp. If a man already judged recants his previous confessions, we consider him a relapsed heretic beyond the redemption of God, and that man is going to the stake. On the Nature of Heresy, a treatise by a Dominican abbot. The Strappado. Bind the heretic's wrists behind his back, pass the rope over a high beam, pull him off the ground, then suddenly drop him. This will snap his arms and dislocate his shoulders, my favourite. The rack. Use ropes to fix the heretic's hands and feet to the rollers. Loosen or tighten the rollers at a signal from the Inquisitor. The mounting pressure on the heretic's joints dislocates the limbs. Good, but messy. Trial by fire. Baste their feet with lard or oil and slowly roast them over a flame. Always useful. Notes of an Inquisition torturer. Our order is changing. We previously protected pilgrims. Now we have evolved into a crusading fighting force. Our hard-won experience on the battlefields of Outremer made us the darlings of European monarchs, yet a much-favoured scapegoat, too. After all, everyone owes us money. Juggling money, the root of all evil, turned the order into a staggering behemoth, an easy target for envy and scorn. I heard people on the street refer to a beggar, saying, "He drinks like a Templar." Had we fallen so low that in Germany they call going to the temple a visit to a brothel? Guillaume de Beaujeu, Grand Master 1273. Dear friend, Rome is in turmoil, and I fear the Vatican is no longer suited to ensure your safety. Should I remind you how dangerous it is to live there in these troubled times? I feel you will be much more secure and powerful here in France. You should move the Holy See from Rome to the city of Avignon, where you will be close to me and suitably protected. Don't think of this as some form of captivity. You won't be my prisoner. It's merely for your own sake and to safeguard the continuation of the papacy. Letter to Pope Clement V from King Philip IV. Dear friend, now that my wife has passed away and I'm a widower, I wish to apply to join your order. I'm even ready to abdicate the throne in favour of my son. This will leave me free to assume the title of Warrior King and lead the Templars in Outremer. My idea is to combine all the military orders into one powerful Order of the Knights of Jerusalem. We will retake the Holy City, and I will be crowned King of Jerusalem. I also hope that as a gesture of goodwill you are prepared to alleviate me of some of the loans I owe the Templars. Letter from King Philip IV the Fair to Grand Master Jacques de Molay. Master, I humbly urge you to reconsider your cooperation with King Philip the Fair. This man is everything but fair, except for his good looks. He's a ruthless politician whose avarice knows no bounds of decency nor fear of consequence. His sole obsession is money. Allow me to remind you how Philip arrested the Jews, stole from the Lombards, levied all kinds of taxes on commoners and clergy, and devalued the coinage of France twice to fill his ever-needy royal coffers. As you've refused to give him any further loans, now he's cast an eye on our wealth. Don't trust him, master. Letter to Jacques de Molay from Geoffroy de Charny. This sealed royal communique is to be opened precisely on Friday the 13th, 1307. At the crack of dawn on this date, every Templar in France is to be arrested upon order of your king. I am well aware of what you are wondering right now. How is it possible that these holy warriors are guilty? After all, they are highly esteemed men. Allow me to ease your conscience, for their crimes against God, the Church, Europe, and common decency are unspeakable. They stand accused of heresy, witchcraft, treason, and sexual perversion. Sealed order for the arrest of all Templars from King Philip IV of France. Your Majesty, as requested, I prepared a list of accusations against the Templars. I conjured up crimes so horrible, so ungodly, that the whole world will turn against them. What worked to take care of the Cathars and the Jews should do the trick again. The main charge brought is heresy. Upon torture, the Templars testified that when introduced to the order, new initiates are required to deny Christ, to spit on the Holy Cross, and engage in homosexual acts. They also worship an idol in the form of a cat or bearded head called Baphomet. The Templars are already history. William of Paris, Grand Inquisitor of France to King Philip IV. What truly is this Baphomet, the mysterious idol the Templars allegedly worship? I heard a lot of confusing stories during the trial. Some say it was the head of John the Baptist or of Hugh de Payens. Templars at the trial claimed it was too terrible to describe. Others, that it had 4 feet, 2 in the front and 2 at the back. Still others vouched that it was the bearded head of a man with 2 or 3 faces, made of silver with carbuncles in the eye sockets and a texture of old skin, or a necromantic skull with crossbones, though few described it as a horned demon. Chronicler of the Templar trial. I clearly remember the day when our last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was led in chains to the Isle of the Jews in Paris in 1314. They tied him to a stake and set it on fire. He showed no sign of fear. As the flames from the execution pyre engulfed him, de Molay declared our innocence and cried out a terrible curse against his enemies Philip the Fair and Clement V, summoning both of them to appear before God, the supreme judge, before the year was out. Philip and Clement died within a year of the execution. Justice was served. Johann Larmenius, survivor of the order. Stranger, hear this tale, and remember that swords may extinguish people's lives, but they can never erase memory. In 1244, we, the last Cathars still resisting, made our heroic last stand after a 2-year siege of Montségur. The Crusaders had 10,000 troops. We were around 220, mostly women and children. 3 of us managed to slip through the besiegers' lines, carrying the holy treasure away. Now it is safe. Nearly starved to death, my people surrendered and were burned alive by the Inquisition when they refused to renounce their faith. Pierre Autier, Cathar leader on the fall of Montségur. I grew up hearing the tales of valiant King Arthur, of his knights of the Round Table, and the eternal quest for the Holy Grail. These stories laid the foundation of my epic poem, Parzival, which made me world famous. Few people know that I had a real inspiration for the secret guardians of the Grail. I modelled them after the noble Templars. One of them told me the true Grail is kept at the castle of Montségur. Is it possible? Wolfram von Eschenbach, author of Parzival. It was some years after Edward Longshanks executed our hero, William Braveheart Wallace. We were fighting for freedom under Robert the Bruce. The decisive clash with the English dogs took place at Bannockburn in 1314. Our lines were crumbling when I saw something which I still consider the product of a clouded mind. Out of the woods rode a fierce contingent of mysterious knights on horseback, dressed in white tunics, who crushed the forces of King Edward and turned the battle in our favour. I think these knights were the Templars, a Scottish patriot on the Battle of Bannockburn. After the dissolution of our order, we earned a second chance to live forever, this time as legend, a legend so bright and yet so veiled that it will always kindle people's curiosity. Centuries later, I bet they will ask themselves, were we really devil-worshipping heretics or wrongfully accused saints? Did we survive, settle in Scotland, and continue to operate underground against kings and church, fostering secret societies? Did we give rise to a new promised land across the ocean, or turn into pirates? Where did our treasures disappear to? And did we really possess the Grail? I hope you find the answers someday. William St. Clair, Rosslyn,